mean we can't measure involvement. And another way to measure involvement is constituent engagement. Now, two great examples of this. One is Habitat for Humanity. That's a wonderful local collaboration between individuals and companies to build homes for low-income families. And many very appropriate companies have aligned themselves with this, again, thinking in terms of relevance to an audience, resonance to an audience, relevance to their business, and driving results. And results in this case is community participation. And as I talked about earlier with Donate a Phone, constituent engagement here was all about the simple proposition of requiring no purchase. All a consumer had to do was grab their used wireless phone, bring it into a retail location, and we take that phone and recycle it and give it to a domestic violence victim. Now, this is an example of a campaign that on face value looks like a consumer-driven campaign. This was as much a B2B campaign as anything else. The funder of the campaign was Motorola. Motorola does not sell anything to a consumer. Motorola sells handsets to wireless carriers. We were able to create a campaign driven by Motorola that asked consumers to come into retail locations who are the customers of Motorola. So how did we measure results and drive business? We were driving store traffic to Motorola's #1 customer. In fact, we collected over 1 million phones in just 1 year, all of which walked into retail locations. One last example of how to measure value is a little less tangible but equally important, and that's strategic collaboration. What I mean by this is sometimes when you create a campaign, the primary means of facilitating the program through a partner is in fact one of the most tangible benefits of the initiative. For ADT, we partnered with the National Coalition Against, we partnered with the National Crime Prevention Council to donate McGruff costumes to local law enforcement. ADT wanted to create stronger relationships with local law enforcement. The end benefit to ADT was stronger relationships with law enforcement. For Sallie Mae, the campaign Project Access was about helping educate low-income families and minorities about how to apply for a college loan. But at the same time, by partnering with the Hispanic College Fund, it forged a strong relationship between Sallie Mae and one of its key constituents. As you can see, there's a lot of ways here and a lot of flexibility relative to how to create a social branding campaign that's successful. Before we conclude, I want to recap a couple key strategic insights. As we talked about earlier, people aren't able to financially support causes as much as they would like. This creates a tremendous opportunity for brands because we can step in and provide that support that they can't. And customers expect this from brands. So we can be helping them fulfill something they don't feel they can do, and at the same time, we're delivering to them an expected behavior. And then lastly, this speaks to the long-term benefit, how brands and companies who support issues that their customers care about, how they'll be rewarded in the future. Because when you think about it, as we all struggle with creating our own 9 marketing budgets, there's a real opportunity, as has been illuminated several times in our talk, for smart, strategic, and meaningful commitment to the social issues. The economic conditions we're facing are forcing our customers to spend less. But what they'll spend, they're going to spend better. And they'll do it with the brands they care about most. And as our poll illustrated, now is the time for brands to be steadfast in their commitment to social branding, despite the challenges of the economy. Because when we come out on the other end of this financial crisis, customers are going to remember the brands that got them through the tough times. I'm reminded of that quote by an individual earlier from the survey that said, "I'm just barely keeping my head above water. They deserve respect for helping me in this economy." Customers are going to reward social branding partners. And the reward is going to be more than a product purchase. It's going to be loyalty. And that loyalty will far exceed any single product purchase. Before we get to our questions, we want to remind our listeners that our next webinar in the series, which will come in January, will be focused on our Pump Digital and Direct group. Will be led by Dave Bulger, EMA partner in that group. The event details will be following after the first of the year, and we hope you can all participate. And at this point, I think we're ready for any questions folks might have.
At this time, if you would like to ask a question, please press the star and 1 on your touch-tone telephone. You may withdraw your question from the queue at any time by pressing the pound key. Once again, to ask a question, please press the star and 1 keys now. And we have a question from the site of Aiden McGuire. Your line is open. Please go ahead.
Hi, I have a question for you. Does conducting a cause-related marketing campaign require the marketer to give up other charitable activities and, say, focus on a single cause?
That's kind of a two-part answer, and it's a very good question, because rarely is there an instance we encounter where a client isn't engaged in some type of social branding activity. And the first thing we do is we sit down and audit what it is they're doing already. And we measure it against those three tenets we talked about. You know, does it resonate with your customers? Is it relevant to your business? And how are you measuring results? That would be the first thing we would do. But the reality is there's no right or wrong answer to that. I will tell you that a singular focus allows you to devote more resources and ultimately success. You know, the campaigns we talked about for Sallie Mae, for Motorola, for MSCA, for Lennox, these were singly focused campaigns that allowed the brand to focus all their energies into delivering that value that customers want to see and engages them. Now, you take a manufacturer, for instance, they might have an instance where multiple facilities around the country require them to do one singular national initiative, and they may have to create some local iterations that more meets the flavor of what's required in the local market. So I guess the answer to your question, Aiden, is it's preferable on a national level to have one, but it's not unheard of to localize separate initiatives.
Thank you. And as a reminder, if you would like to ask a question, please press the star and 1 keys now. We'll go next to the site of Aaron Coyne. Your line is open. Please go ahead.
Hi, I had a question for you guys. I can understand how social branding can be effective in terms of consumer purchases, and I know you touched on this briefly, but in terms of business-to-business purchasing decisions, is cause-related marketing as effective?
Oh, I definitely think so. That's a short answer, but I have, you know, I'm a little biased. but no, when you think about it really, again, I keep going back to the whole idea of resonance, relevance, results. From a planning standpoint, it doesn't matter. The difference between a B2B environment and a B2C environment is you've got to contemplate the interest of more people, particularly the distribution channel. But as evidence we talked about with Motorola, their distribution channel was wireless retailers. So for Motorola, you know, it was less about, you know, the resonance for their audience was driving business to their customer. The relevance of their business was, again, delivering value through their distribution chain. So it's just a different way to look at the same planning philosophy, but it can be very successful.
Thank you. And it appears that we have no further questions in the queue at this time. But as a reminder, if you would like to ask a question, please press the star and 1 keys now. And we still have no questions in the queue. I'd like to turn the call back to our presenters.
Thanks very much, Sarah. For anybody who has any follow-up questions that they'd like to send in and not use on or not ask them now on this call, you could email either Chuck or me. Email addresses are Chuck at his is C Beeler, B-E-E-L-E-R at mower.com, C Beeler at mower.com, and mine is G-L-O-H at mower.com, G-L-O-H at mower.com. Thanks very much for listening today, and we'll hope to have you on the line with us in January for the next in our webinar series.
This does conclude today's teleconference. Thank you for your participation. You may disconnect at any time and have a wonderful day.